Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So obviously a couple days ago, I wrapped up my top 50 players in the entire NHL list. And if you've been following the page for a while, you know shortly after the top 50 players skaters list comes the top 20 goaltenders. So today I'm going to give you my top 10 goaltenders in the entire NHL. I'll have part 1 up on Instagram of 11 through 20 and then 1 through 10 on Tuesday. But we're going to be looking at the top 10 goalies in the entire NHL in this video. Here's mine from 6 months ago. I had Sokan, Shurkin, Vasilevskiy, Saros, Hellebuyck, Omark, Oettinger, Kemper, Swayman, Demko. So things have definitely changed, to say the least. I'm proud of myself for still having Thatcher Demko. He got crazy underrated this past summer because he struggled hard. He obviously is going to jump a lot. Some of these guys are going to fall out. Jake Oettinger and Kemper get out of there, not playing that good this year. But it is time to give my updated top 10. And when it comes to goalies, even more than skaters, I said skaters, it was like 48% this year, 42% last year, and then previous years on top. Goalies, it is more so like 40, maybe even 30. It's less emphasis on this year is what I'm trying to say, because goalies are so sporadic. Like if I was doing the same criteria, Charlie Lindgren would probably no doubt be a top 10 goalie in the entire NHL because he's playing like the third or fourth best goalie in the entire league. So I'm not going to be going solely based on this season as much as say the last one. It's more so this season is definitely the most important, but I'd say it's like 36. Let me just do some math on the top of my head. 36, 33, 30 for like the past, and then 30 for like prior seasons on top of that. So and when it comes to goalies, the overall track record does mean more than, say, with the skaters. So without further ado, let's get into number 10. And at number 10, I have Jacob Markstrom. Markstrom, really weird the last 3 years. 2 seasons ago, has a .922 save percentage, was fantastic on that Calgary Flames team that obviously went on to go win the division, win the first round against the Dallas Stars. He was fantastic in that season. He finished second for the Vezina. I think he was a little bit inflated because that team was so good. The underlying numbers weren't fantastic. They were still like top 6 in the entire NHL, but he was a no doubt top 10 guy there. Then last season falls off a cliff, .892. The Flames on the whole absolutely stink. His underlying numbers weren't horrible. He had like a -3 goals saved above expected, so he was definitely below average, but he wasn't like a Philip Grubauer 2 years ago when he was the worst goalie in hockey. But he wasn't good last year, and now this year he has a .912 save percentage. Some models have him first in the entire league in goals saved above expected. The underlying numbers absolutely love him, and watching him, he is really carrying this Calgary Flames team to a potential wildcard spot. He looks like that goalie of 2 years ago. So when you look at the overall track record, this year playing great, prior years has been a very good starter. So I think with Jacob Markstrom, he has reestablished himself as definitely an above average starter, maybe even elite one. Maybe he'll even get traded if the Flames decide to. Previously, no one was taking on that contract after last season. He could actually get traded now. Number 9, Tristan Jarry. Tristan Jarry is not the highest upside guy, but when looking at his stats over the past 5 seasons, it's about as consistent as it gets. During 2020, before the season obviously ended, he had a .921 in 33 games as their kind of 1B. Then he became the starter. He had a .909 that following season in the COVID-shortened season. Then at a .919 the following year in 2022. Last year, he had a .909, and this year he has a .917. So this guy's given you consistently between around, as a starter at least, between .909 to .917 goaltending every single year. He's consistent. You might, again, not get Vezina caliber play, but I would probably take a Tristan Jarry that I know what I'm going to get out of him over a Markstrom that's a very shrieky goaltender. Tristan Jarry has been very good for the Pittsburgh Penguins and definitely warrants a spot in the top 10 based on his play and based on his track record in previous years. Now we get into the more so defined top 8, in my opinion. These are the more elite guys. Linus Omark at number 8, obviously last year, .938 save percentage. It wasn't fugazi. He still had very good underlying numbers, but it was on the greatest regular season team of all time. He was resting a shit ton. He only played like 48 or 49 games. But this year, yet again, having a very solid season, a .912. And when looking at Omark, before he even got to Boston, he was very good in Buffalo. Bad Buffalo teams, he was putting up around mid-910s, .915 and a .917 in the final 2 seasons and about 60 games before he left for the Boston Bruins. So when looking at Omark, yes, he was overrated this past summer. I never had him in my top 5. I had him at number 6. I would have never put him over a Hellebuyck or a Saros until I saw multiple elite years. And it's clear clear he has taken a bit of a step back, but even a step back for him is a 912, having like 7 goals saved above expected. He's still a very good goaltender. Number 7, another Boston Bruins goaltender, Jeremy Swayman. The last 2 years, on like a per game basis, he has probably been a top 3 goalie in the entire NHL. 920 save percentage last year, 9.23 save percentage this year. Last year, he was 8th in goals saved above expected in the entire league. This year, he's taken that next step, and now he's 5th. You do kind of got to dock him a little bit because he is in a tandem. He's not going out every other day and balling out. He gets a lot of rest. It's going to be very interesting to see once Omark's deal is up after next season, and he kind of becomes that number 1 because they are going to have to pay him probably this summer. When he gets 55 to 60 games, will he be as efficient, not getting as much rest? But I think no doubt you got to admit that Jeremy Swayman is one of the better goalies in the entire NHL. Yes, he's on a very good team, but he's put up elite stats since walking into the NHL. At number 6, UC Saros. I've been very high on this guy in his last 3 seasons. He's been Vezina caliber, in my opinion. But this year, he's kind of just playing bad, honestly. He has a 902 save percentage, 2.97 goals against average. And when looking at some of the other guys that are higher up on the list that also aren't having that good of regular stats, those guys are all positive goals saved above expected. When looking at a UC Saros, he's negative 4.8. Kevin Lankinen's arguably playing better than him right now. So I still think the gap between him and Swayman is pretty big, given UC Saros' track record playing around like 60 games a year. UC Saros is still an elite goaltender, and there's not a massive gap even between UC Saros and like number 2 right now, in my opinion. 2 through 6 is very, very close. So when looking at Saros, I think he's definitely going to bounce back, but he does need to fall back a little bit in terms of this ranking because he has not been up to par, up to snuff from what we expect from a UC Saros. Number 5, Andrei Vasilevskiy. Vasilevskiy, when you look at him this year, not playing that good, 899 save percentage. Unlike Saros, though, he has a positive 3 goals saved above expected. But when looking at Vasilevskiy, it has kind of been a little bit of downhill. When looking at it, 2021, he had a 925 save percentage. Arguably should have won the Vezina Trophy over Marc-Andre Fleury. The following year, still a very solid 916. He finished, I think, 4th or 5th. Last year had a 915, finished 6th. This year, probably not going to get any goddamn Vezina votes, as you'd imagine, with an 899. Tampa is not the same team, but he is expected to elevate them. And especially when you look at the playoffs, last year it was not good at all. So it's been 2 years since he's arguably been the best goalie in the entire NHL. The playoff numbers, you can't really rely on that when it's almost 2 years ago. Yes, when it comes playoff time, I would maybe go with Vasilevskiy over some of the guys ahead of him, but that is relying on stuff that happened 2 years ago. I can't fully do that based on the body of work, especially the past 2 years. Number 5 seems about right. In the past 2 years, he has not been a top 7, top 8 goalie in the entire NHL. I think that's fair. So when looking at Vasilevskiy, I do have to bump him down. But again, even though he's been not even a top 15, not even 20 guy, given that body of work, he still needs to be very high. Number 4, I'm going to go with Thatcher Demko. I've seen people put him higher. I've seen people put him lower because of the lack of a track record. But I actually think he does have a pretty solid track record. 2021 and 2022, he put up a 915. That is very top 10, very good goalie stats. And when looking at him even last year, he finished the year with a 901 save percentage, but it was because he had such a horrible start, which again, you can't really excuse it. But the Canucks didn't win like a goddamn game in their first. It took him like 10 games to win a single game last season. It was an utter shit show. He went 3-10-2 in his first 15 games with an 882 and 3.73 goals against average. He gets hurt with a groin injury, takes like 2 to 3 months off. He comes back in like his final 13 games, or just in his 13 games post-injury, he had a 918 and 2.53. So yet again was around that 915 goaltender. And then this year obviously has a 919 save percentage, 2.47 goals against, in top 3 in most goaltending metrics, basically across the board, at least top 5. So when looking at Thatcher Demko, in my opinion, he's second place in the Vezina ballot right now, considering the workload and the stats that he's put up. I could see an argument for 2, 3, but I could also see why you'd maybe have him at 5 or 6. 4 just seems about right. It seems about right for me, but let me know what you think about that. Number 3, Igor Shesterkin, a guy that is having a bit of a down year this year. 2 years ago, obviously 935 save percentage, played insane in the playoffs, had like a 929 in like 20 games, almost carried the Rangers, not that good of a Rangers team, to, well, they were a pretty good team, but like their first playoff run, 929, almost carried them to a goddamn Stanley Cup. Last year, still a 916, still was like top 5 in most underlying goalie numbers, and was fantastic again in the playoffs with the 931 save percentage, but the Devils would go on to, or the Rangers would go on to lose to the Devils. This year he has a 902, but he does still have around 5 goals saved above expected. So the Rangers, especially of late, have really failed in front of him. It has not been that much of sound fundamental hockey in terms of their defensive system. So when looking at Shesterkin, he's been the best goalie in the playoffs the past 2 years. Honestly, he had better numbers than Vasilevskiy 2 years ago as well. So Shesterkin is probably the best playoff performer given recent track record. So I do have him somewhat high for that. And considering last year he arguably could have been a Vezina finalist, and I think this year he's going to play better in the second half of the season. Number 2, you could probably assume who this is by now, Ilya Sorokin. Last year, 924, 2.3 goals against. He was definitely either the best or second best goalie in the entire NHL. They would go on to lose against the Hurricanes. He wasn't fantastic, but he wasn't bad by any means. This year, he's definitely having a massive down year. His goals against are like almost 3.2, but the save percentage is still okay. It's a 908 save percentage, still has around 4 goals saved above expected. The Islanders' defense absolutely sucks. They're 24th in expected goals per 60. So Sorokin, compared to prior years, has to carry a worse defense now, and he's just not exactly doing that, but I still think he is one of the premier goalies in the entire NHL, given his track record. Consistently put up a 920 his first 3 years in the NHL. So I think you still need to respect Ilya Sorokin, considering how elite he was last year, and even this year's a massive down year, and he still has a 908 save percentage. And at number 1, I don't think this should be that much of a controversial take. It's Connor Hellebuck, 927 save percentage this year with 2.15 goals against average. He's pretty easily the favorite to win the Vezina Trophy. I don't know why I blanked on that. Might get some heart votes, honestly, when looking at that. He's played like 33 or 34 out of their 44 games. He has been an absolute workhorse. And when you look at him in his prior seasons, 2020, he won the Vezina, had a 920 save percentage. The following year, 916. Year after that, 910, year after that, 920 yet again, last year being a Vezina finalist as well, and it's looking like at the bare minimum he's going to be a Vezina finalist yet again. So this guy, his down year in the past 4 years was a goddamn 910. He's going to be top 4 in Vezina voting like 4 out of the last 5 years. The track record that he has put together since he basically became a starter in the league. I think his first full starting year or second full starting year, he was second place for the goddamn Vezina. So he has been one of the most consistent goalies in the entire NHL. Yes, the playoff stats have not been fantastic for him, but when looking at what he brings you, 65 games of just workhorse hockey, can bank on like a 918, 919 from him every single goddamn year. When you see the other guys, the other elite of the elite going back to this, the top 4 that I had last year are very much slacking off this season. I think Connor Hellebuck is without a doubt right now, if I was to pick a goalie, the best goalie in the entire NHL. But let me know in the comments, what do you think? Again, it goes Markstrom, Jarry, Omark, Swayman, Saros, Vasilevskiy, Demko, Igor, Sorokin, Hellebuck. I'll be seeing you in the next one.